All right, here we are. Thank you everyone for joining us today for PQ&A, our inaugural broadcast, where we will be sharing the top 5 insights from the 2018 E-Expectations Report in 30 minutes or less. My name is Gil Rogers. I'm the Vice President for Marketing Strategy here at PlatformQ Education. We are thrilled to have with us today Stephanie Geyer, who's the Vice President for Digital Marketing and Creative Solutions at Ruffalo No Levitz, who's really the mastermind behind the E-Expectations Report. Stephanie, you want to do a quick introduction, say hello for folks that who I don't know who they are, but who might not know yet?
Thanks so much, Gil. I'm really thrilled to be here. I appreciate the chance to share our 2018 data with y'all.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And we'll dive in a little bit. So just a couple of quick housekeeping items. Feel free to follow us on Twitter at PlatformQ.edu and use the hashtag EXpect hashtag, which you see on the bottom of the screen there. Just a couple of quick agenda items before we get started. For those who aren't familiar with PlatformQ Education, we're going to do a quick overview of who we are and what we do and our perspective on student engagement in the marketplace. Then we're going to go right into the E-Expectations data because we do only have 30 minutes or so. We'll run into the 5 key takeaways from Stephanie, and then we'll open it up for any questions and answers that you might have. So, for those who may not be familiar with PlatformQ Education, we are a digital engagement company. We build a platform called Conduit, which you're actually in the Conduit environment right now if you're watching the webcast via the link that you may have gotten in your email. And what Conduit helps us do is provide engagement solutions to help students really from the point of inquiry all the way through enrollment. And we specialize in higher education and supporting events and programming to help you with the steps of the process. And the reason why we do that is if we think about the historical context of higher education and enrollment marketing specifically, in the past there were 15, 20 years ago or so, limited providers of data and access to get information on students to recruit, right? And it was much easier and more predictive to identify where you'd be able to identify those students and reach those students and ultimately be able to forecast the bottom of your funnel throughout the process. And what's happened over time is that search has evolved, right? We know that there have been a proliferation of resources and sources. Things like digital marketing, CRM solutions have come to help with automating some of those processes, social media, which we'll talk about a little about in the E-Expectations data today. But what we found is that applications per enrollment at most institutions have doubled over the past 15 years or so, while yield has dropped by as much as 15% or 50 percentage points rather. So that means that we've done double the amount of work essentially for almost the same net result, right? So there's some challenges that we have to uncover and really support throughout the process. At the same time, student perspectives have changed as well, and student perceptions and preferences have changed. When we think about the student engagement process, we know, and we'll get into some of this data deeper in a little bit, 7 out of 10 students watch videos from colleges. We also know that the .edu or your branded content on the web is amongst the most trusted sources for college information. And the final piece that we know is that current students and counselors are rated amongst the most influential connections when identifying who students communicate with. So at PlatformQ Education, I mentioned before, we've developed a platform called Conduit that takes those 3 pieces and brings them together, helping to build meaningful connections throughout the process. And what we've done is built this platform in a way to help you really evolve your student engagement strategy. So thinking about your traditional outreach and the work that you do, how do you integrate online engagement throughout the funnel without overworking your team or breaking the bank, right? So we'd love to talk more and share the back end of this platform and the experience you're looking through now. And then, one quick piece of breaking news before we get to the data. We actually are working on a new enhanced feature that we're testing while we do this presentation today. We call it Enhanced Simulcast. And what Enhanced Simulcast allows us to do is through the Conduit platform, present this presentation via the desktop experience you may be watching it on, the mobile experience you may be watching it on, or across social media, across Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. So don't try to go find it now, but if you are on our Facebook channel or our YouTube channel or our Twitter stream, you will see that we're presenting this presentation live across all of those channels at the same time, which to our knowledge is something that you can't do through most out-of-the-box webcasting solutions. So that's enough about us and what we do. Wanted to give you that quick level of context, but I want to turn it over to Stephanie to share a little bit about the e-expectations report and the background of the study this year before we hop into the takeaways.
Thanks, Gil. So we've been at e-expectations for about 14 years now, and I can't imagine life without it. It's a great opportunity for us to develop original or primary data on what prospective students want from our website, social media, how they're engaging with us through paid channels, and, is email still a thing or not? It's still a thing. So you can see on the screen our methodology, 529 high school juniors and seniors. We talked to them through a web-based survey. They received email invitations, and that was in late March and early April of this year. So this is fresh data. 95% confidence interval and a nice plus or minus 4% margin of error. So I will say, the title says that we're going to do kind of 5 highlights in 30 minutes. Man, it is hard to limit it to 5. So you'll forgive me if I offer up 6 or 7 or 8 data points that you can take away and hopefully do something with on your home campus.
Awesome. And now we are at 24 minutes or less, just keeping an eye on time, Stephanie. So, so the first thing I wanted to talk, I had a chance to kind of preview the report before you released it at the RNL National Conference last week. And one of the things that popped out at me was Rfi Forms. And it was partially because of the report and then partially because of at the RNL conference and at EDU Web 18, there was a lot of chatter about Rfi Forms. And I'd love you to kind of share some of your thoughts and insights on, the role request for information forms can play and what students are saying about them.
Thanks. Yeah. Thoughts, or maybe you mean rants. I think I was ranting quite a bit at our national conference on this point. A couple of things. If you can look and consume all of the data in this particular slide, you'll see that requests for information forms are one of the leading ways in which users, prospective students, raise their hand and let us know that they're interested. And so we understand that that's important. But here's the data point that I want you to focus on. Half of seniors and 41% of juniors said that they have bailed on your form, yes, yours, because it's too long. You are asking for too much information. Now, they are willing to give us their name, their email address, even their cell phone number. Probably okay with telling us what year they're thinking about entering. But when we go into detail, and here's my super pet peeve, stop asking them how they heard about your institution. Do you really want to risk form abandonment for a data point that A, is not reliable, and B, you're probably not going to remember to go back and look at and use? I think it's a clear case of opportunity to use other data resources to get at how a prospective student hears about your school. Get that inquiry in. We know how important that is.
Absolutely. And just a thought on that about the data point, it's data you probably already have, right? If you look at if you're using a CRM system, you at least know the source where you acquired the data, right? Whether it was from a list buy or social media or what have you. The other thing is that's interesting, just from a thought on Rfi Forms, is really, thinking about ways to integrate that throughout the process. One quick plug on Conduit is we have a feature called Campus Connect that is a chat tool that you can embed across your entire website, and that can act as an Rfi form in a sense that a student has to give you their name and email address to ask a question, right? So now you have a way to identify students across your site who might be browsing information and take that anonymous web traffic and turn it into an inquiry. And now you're getting these specific questions that they want to know about, not just what page they came from, but also what they actually want to hear from you about. So just another thought on personalization of the outreach.
I love that. I think it's the way to go. And certainly web analytics, Google is adding some new New features as well, allowing you to track traffic between a single user or multiple devices. So that definitely beats, how did you hear about us? A radio commercial? Come on.
Okay, so shifting gears a little bit, and you mentioned tracking across multiple devices and whatnot. Social media by nature potentially creates a multiple device issue, right? Because a lot of activity on social is done on a mobile device, but then maybe the next action that a student takes after engaging with you is on a desktop environment, registering for an event, those sorts of things. What are students telling us about social media as part of the college search this year?
It's still playing an important role in an overall view of influencing resources. It skews toward the end, but we hear in the open-ended responses that social media plays a role. It gives them context, it helps them determine fit, and gives them a place to interact with current students, alumni, faculty. I think it's also an important asset for parents as well. And so some interesting changes in daily use apart from higher ed, but also within higher ed, understanding that Facebook has really taken a beating this year. Just as we were facilitating this study, the Cambridge Analytica issue came to light. And I wondered how that might affect the response for prospective students, high school age students in Facebook. And unfortunately, we won't know if this is a continuing trend until next year, but we do see a decline in Facebook in daily use. And then also Facebook, best for college research, we see a significant dip there as well. I'm asked frequently, what would I do if I were a chief marketing officer? In terms of investing time and energy in social channels, I would double down on Instagram. I think that the opportunities there in terms of paid as well as earned and social are just where it's worth spending time and effort. We did see some kind of flattening of Snapchat. And so not sure that if you have limited staff, limited bandwidth, that's where I would spend a lot of time. People like to argue and say, but that's where the kids are. And sure enough, they are. My focus group of 3 here in the Geyer household, I'll tell you that they are Snapchatting constantly. However, when I ask them, are they doing any business? Are they investigating any potential purchases that they might like to make? Or even for my soon-to-be high school senior, would she look at a college or university? And the answer is no. We have the quantitative data, not just the Geyer girls, to back that up here as well.
Yeah, and I think that the flattening of Snapchat might also partially have to do with the user interface changes they made. And Instagram stories, right? Instagram stories came out and as kind of the copycat of Snapchat and has become bigger, right? So kudos to Facebook for buying Instagram and then copying Snapchat, right? So kind of dovetailing in with social media as a digital channel, obviously, advertising, sponsored content, those sorts of things are one way that institutions can get in front of students online. What are students saying about their feeling about advertising?
They're definitely consuming it, even if they're only looking at it. So we saw 67% of seniors, 68% of juniors said that they saw paid ads. And then 41% of seniors, 45% of juniors said that they had clicked on paid ads. Just a heads up too, last year in 2017, we talked to sophomores, and in that study, 61% of sophomores said that they had clicked on a paid ad. I forgot to mention, you can get this report at ruffalonl.com or find me on Twitter, and I'd love to send it to you. We have the research report is available now and easy enough to go and sign up to receive your copy of that. Of course, I'd love to hear from you personally as well. So back to the data, We asked, why are they clicking on paid ads? And, looking for something new, looking to connect, looking to continue their exploration. I think interesting that juniors are clicking on ads for schools that they've never heard of at more than double the rate that seniors are doing so. And I think that we also see retargeting is a little bit more effective for seniors than juniors. So some, I think, basic things there. Just zipping ahead, I think an really interesting point that we added to the study this year was if you see an ad for a college or university, even if you don't click on it, are you likely to go to the website for that school? So think about the joy of that. You are potentially investing a lot of money in a paid campaign, but users aren't clicking. They're not costing you money, but they are still showing up on your site. 97% of juniors said, yeah, I do that. I think that's awesome. Now, measurement is always so important, but I think still, if you've got skeptics on paid campaigns, especially for undergrad, use this data point to help you out.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of opportunity there with leveraging attribution tracking, conversion pixels, which is way above what we could cover in 30 minutes. But there's opportunity to better communicate measurements of campaigns, of specifically paid media, right? It's not just clicks, but it's conversions, and it's how many students saw or clicked an ad and then came back and took a further action. So there's definitely ways to leverage that. So the next topic, something that's very near and dear to our hearts here at PlatformQ Education is video, right? What are students saying about video when it comes to the college search process and engaging with a college?
So video is important, firm grasp of the obvious, right? And we've got a lot of different data points on video this year, some new ones. We asked, have you watched a video directly on a college website? And we can see more than 3/4 of seniors and more than half of juniors said that they had. So looks like something that's happening a little bit later in the cycle. And I think that is interesting to keep in mind, that juniors might not feel like they're that far along that they need to invest in the time to watch a video. Lots of topics of interest to them. The self-help tutorial kind of thing not playing as well as just developing or enhancing their sense of place and people. So keep that in mind too as you're working on videos. But I think the highlight, or the best new data point that we have, is how long should those videos be? We asked, hey, will you look at the runtime before you launch a video on a mobile device? And yeah, they do look at the runtime, and they want you to keep those videos simple and short, perhaps. Less than 2 minutes, I think, would be about right. 3 minutes, way too much, for sure. So keep that in mind as you're developing video content. I'd say diversity and freshness are also really important characteristics of a strong video campaign.
Great. And just to add to that, I think that for PlatformQ partners who are on the presentation today, thinking about and talking to your client success manager about how do we integrate the topics that students care about into our communication plans, and that's something that we can support in helping you develop. The other part, and you mentioned about deeper in the funnel and deeper in engagement, that just kind of points out the reality that video is a great way to support conversion and mostly yield, right? The students who are deeper in the funnel are more likely to want to engage with that kind of higher effort content per se. Sitting down and watching a video, whatever device they want to watch it on, whether it's their mobile device, desktop, tablet, whatever platform, whether it's YouTube, etc. Having a presence there is something to think about. The last piece that we wanted to talk about today was is website usability. I know that the ability to actually navigate a website and find the information you're looking for, whether it's just ease of navigation and consistency, or things like VPAT compliance for accessibility, for Section 508 compliance. There's how important is it for your website to be usable to a prospective student?
Seems like a good idea to me. So one of the interesting bits of information that I'm still puzzling through is a shift from last year to this year in terms of preference to navigate through a college or university website. And you can see from that first section in this very colorful bar chart that this year, students were much more willing to use the navigation resources that you provide on your site, as opposed to previous year, and I think even before that, where we saw students less likely to do that, more likely to open a new tab and rely on Google to drive them to the right resource within your site. Perhaps we have made improvements in overall higher education navigation information architecture. I'm not so sure. I still see a lot of challenging websites out there in our marketplace. So something to think about there for sure. We asked them what frustrates you about a college or university website. And I found some conflict in the first and second responses in this particular table. And if you're squinting at this, I'll read it for you. Not enough information to answer my questions, but too much to read. And this was ordered by juniors who are now our rising seniors, my daughter among them. So not enough information to answer my questions, too much to read. At first, maybe seems like a conflict, but when we do think about what higher ed web interface looks like, sometimes overly burdened by content, not streamlined, not focused, not great use of headlines, subheads, bullets, short, easy to skim paragraphs, I think maybe getting at some of this. The third highest challenge or frustration was link options don't make sense to me. And we need to think about that in terms of using insider vernacular when we're choosing our link choices. And then we asked, what would you do? So you're frustrated, you've got some friction in this experience. What are you going to do? The largest response was, I'm just going to go look on some other website and figure out the answer to my question, or I'm just going to keep trying. Juniors, just 15% of them said, I'm out of here. I'm done with your school. You're dead to me. Well, they're probably not saying that, but a very low percentage, I think, and just 10% of seniors said, I'll remove the school from my list. We're done. They're finding other ways to get around it. Even seniors using their phone as a phone. How strange. To find the answer to a question. So I think it's not dire, but it's still so important that when we're constructing websites with prospective students in mind, that we understand who they are, where they might be in their search, what they know and what they don't know, not only about our institution, but how to complete this process successfully. Another new question we asked, when do you go from mobile to laptop? When would you switch to a bigger screen or intentionally start a browsing session with a college or university website? And, they aren't always buzzing around looking at their phone as they're walking between coffee shops. Sometimes they're actually sitting down. So top response was, I'm going to be here a while. I'm doing this right now. Maybe comparing programs and majors within a particular institution, or comparing overall differences between schools. So loading up all of their tabs with all of the schools that they're thinking about, and maybe looking through to compare costs, to compare program offerings, to compare admissions requirements, admissions deadlines and process, things like that. Filling out forms. So completing an RFI, submitting an application, especially the seniors working on that, completing cost calculators. So we know that, and data that I'm not showing here, students are completing forms to a pretty significant percentage still on mobile devices, but they're telling us in response to this question that they will actually go to a desktop or laptop for forms as well. I think it depends on timing and the tasks that they're going for. And then finally, parents over shoulder, POS. So maybe mom is making them sit down and actually do this thing and look at things together and make some choices and have a conversation. So these are important things to keep in mind. We know that prospective students come in randomly and occasionally and very intentionally. And so giving them content, giving them nav choices, giving them successful form experiences, regardless of the venue, is really the message here.
Yeah, and I think just to put a bow on that, a lot of those activities you mentioned are things that are likely the least likely to be mobile optimized on a school's website, right? The application form, Rfi forms, a lot of times those are the areas where we use a plugin for our SIS or our CRM instead of an actual, instead of a page that lives on our website, those sorts of things. So thinking about think about that experience and think about, what your provider is offering and figure out a way to make those experiences better. Some of those things might keep the student engaged longer and lower the probability of them switching going to another website to find information, like you mentioned earlier, or not taking that next step to go to the larger screen. Obviously, with parent over the shoulder, that's going to be something that's done on a laptop or desktop, with the larger format. But anything you can do to relieve friction through that process is always a good thing. So that's great. We got in under the wire, which is awesome. I know there's a lot more. There's a lot more to cover. You mentioned before how to get access to their report. You want to give another quick plug for that for folks that might have missed it before we open up for Q&A?
Absolutely. The best and fastest way to go is to head to ruffalonl.com. And you can opt in to receive the research report there. You can also research past reports. I mentioned the 2017 study. Gil was a great partner in that one last year with parents. And so parent data, I think, still really valuable in the 2017 study. But ruffalonl.com, or find me on Twitter at Steph Geyer. Certainly happy to hear from you there and get it to you as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So we're open for question and answers. We got a couple of minutes. We got two questions early on about international students, and I can give the quick answer. This was a domestic U.S. student-focused survey. Any thoughts on ever going international? I know that opens up a lot of different issues with different social networks, et cetera. But any thoughts there?
Yeah, actually, we have a couple of years of international studies. I think going back to 2015 was the most recent in the archives, and certainly considering that again. I think that we have some new challenges in international recruitment with some of the European privacy restrictions, and I'm always hesitant to say those letters. I think it's GDPR.
Yep.
There it is. Thanks. I'm afraid I'm going to make it LMNO, and that would be wrong. So it's definitely a consideration, something that we're thinking about too at Ruffalo Noel Levitt. So stay tuned. You just never know what we're going to come up with.
Yeah, I think one universal truth with international recruitment is anytime you can build a relationship is a good opportunity. And the challenge with international recruitment in the U.S. is you're always chasing the sun for the audience that a lot of the audiences you're trying to reach, right? With China or India or, all over the globe, right? So having options and methods to be able to do that. You can do that with recorded video. You can do that with scheduled chats, which are all things that we can support for sure. And you mentioned GDPR for our international audience that's out there. Conduit is GDPR compliant as well. So great way to use video in an international recruitment program as well. Great. So in the essence of time, because we did say 30 minutes or less, I want to just do a quick plug for our upcoming webinar next week titled How to Reach and Engage Every Prospect in Every High School at Every College Fair on Every Digital Channel this fall. And I know that sounds like a lot, but there's a lot of great opportunity. That's August 9th, 2 p.m. Eastern time. You can click to register. We'll send you a link to register to sign up as well. But Stephanie, thank you so much. Any other words of wisdom? Where are you going to be next?
Where am I going to be next? I'm going to Buffalo next week to speak part of a keynote panel at the Mongoose Conference, and find me at Higher Web in Sacramento and AMA Higher Ed Symposium in Atlanta, also Atlanta for the NCMPR conference in October. So lots more opportunities. Also, if you're on our website, you'll see opportunities for additional webinars on e-expectations, and can't wait to hear from you. Thanks for giving me a chance to talk with you today, Gil. This is fun. In person will be better. I'll look forward to that one day soon.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much. And you see both of our contact information on the screen there. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for our inaugural Platform Q&A broadcast. We look forward to many more. So thank you so much, Stephanie. Appreciate it. Thank you all for joining, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.